Mars, the fourth planet, has always been associated with great mystery and has always been considered as an alternative to Earth. Venus is more similar to Earth when it comes to comparing it in bulk, whereas Mars similarities are more compelling as considering colonization. Many people believe that ancient civilization exists there. This planet is, in the words, to harbor life. There are some signs of oxygen out there, as scientists have found H2O there. When it comes to the current situation, Earth would soon face human calamity, as the human colonies are ruining the nature and its ecosystem, which will ultimately end its own life on Earth. Scientists have been studying Mars for a long time and found some signs of survival for humans, but why is it still impossible to survive on Mars? Since Galileo watched this planet in the 19th century, astronomers discovered polar ice on Mars. They also saw a network of long, straight canals which ignited up the chances of possibility of life on Mars. In the 1960s, a space robot started to explore Mars, but this robot couldn't survive because of its harsh weather environment. First successful landing came on July 20th, 1976, when NASA's Viking 1 lander touched on the surface of Mars and took its first colored picture, but there were no signs of life. In 2003, Mars was more near than it had been in the past 60,000 years. Taking that opportunity, NASA took advantage and launched the two rovers named Spirit and Opportunity. These rovers explored the signs of water on Mars, but it was not as abundant as it is on our homeland Earth to cater to the future colonization of Mars. However, a question came to mind. Why should we put so much effort and resources if we know that there is no life on Mars? And it also doesn't make sense of sending humans to Mars if there's no chances of survival. Despite all the trending talks of going to Mars and some bizarre photos of weird things on it, there is no real evidence of human life on Mars. Even though there are some signs of life on Mars, it still would be a big risk to send humans on Mars. Here are some facts of some crucial barriers, and it seems impossible to achieve surviving on Mars. It would take approximately 7 months to land on Mars because in every 26 months, the distance between Mars and Earth is approximately 57 million kilometers, which is the closest distance between the Earth and Mars. This is around 894 times the radius of the Earth. Even if humans manage to land with all the necessities of Earth, it's still 7 months afar from its homeland, and there would be no sign of help till 7 months if the situation goes worse. If the two neighbors would become apart, Mars would be at the longest distance from its neighbor planet, which is 401 kilometers, which would be 6,295 times the radius of the Earth. Let's see if we travel Earth from the longest distance. Distance equals 5,700,000 divided by 41 days, or 5,040 hours equals 1,130 kilometers. Distance equals 40,100,000 multiplied by 1,130 kilometers equals 35,486, which means it would take approximately 4 years to land on Mars. The first mission after landing on Mars is how to produce oxygen. The Martian atmosphere is very thin and it's 95% carbon dioxide, and it's impossible to just bring this huge quantity of oxygen from homeland to survive on Mars, though oxygen could be extracted from the carbon dioxide through NASA's MOXIE, but it's not sufficient enough to cater to big colonies. Also, there is no fertile soil to grow food. Even if you could manage to cultivate food through an artificial environment, you could only produce about 20% of the plant as compared to the Earth. All these factors would make it almost impossible to produce oxygen in Mars. One of the biggest dangers for humans to fight on Mars is the radiations. Because the Earth has an active iron core, a strong magnetic field which could make a protection shield above it to fight radiation from the solar and from the sun. In 2004, the largest blast in the solar system named Ray Gamma impacted Earth. It emitted much light in 1/10 of a second, as our sun can release in 10,000 years. Because of Martian low magnetic field solar radiations, between the loss of its magnetic field and its atmosphere, the surface of Mars is exposed to much higher levels of radiation than Earth. The Martian researchers say that because of its little or no resistance against radiation, Martian landers can absorb more energy in their 180-day period than the nuclear power plant worker will in his 15 years of career. And in addition to regular exposure to cosmic rays and solar wind, it receives occasional lethal blasts that occur with strong solar flares. Mars has a very thin layer on magnetosphere compared to Earth. Scientists believe that it may have shut down permanently due to massive destruction on its surface. Its magnetic field ceased, a rapid cooling in its core. This dynamo effect ceased. Its atmosphere is so thin that its radiation is unbearable for humans. Though it's the nearest and to look at what goes on in it currently, but it has no chances to survive without the spacesuit, since its atmosphere consists of 96% of carbon dioxide, 1% nitrogen, and 1.9% of argon. There are two ways to tackle this issue. First one is to create an environment sufficient for supporting water. The second one is to change the atmosphere by going with an option of nuclear blasting. But there is no guarantee for a human to survive against radiation after this explosion. The third option is to create a dome on the surface, but it would cost so much more, even than the whole idea of migrating to Mars. The spacesuit for the astronaut is specially made to make them warm and to protect them from the cold winter of Mars, as the temperature on Mars is very cold. The coldest winter on the Earth is paradise compared to the average Martian winter, because temperature can go as low as negative 55 and even colder at the poles, which could go as below as negative 155 degrees. Now you can imagine Antarctica is much better than the Martian poles. If you are living in a northern continent, you can enjoy 4 seasons of spring for 7 months, summer for 6 months, 5 months of autumn, completing the cycle with 4 months of winter, but no more, because now you are at Mars. And there is nothing like that on Martian climate, as it is very mysterious and can change dramatically, causing a major windstorm 4. It's almost impossible to produce oxygen. The storm is not as harmful as the Earth, but because of its Martian low gravity, it can cause the major damage through your colonies. If you are leaving the Earth just because of overpopulation, my friend, this would probably be a bad idea. Earth is 2 times bigger than Mars, and if Earth could be overcrowded in just 10 centuries, Mars could be 2 times faster, as it has limits, and not as big and enriched as Earth. Though the Earth has limited resources, but they are good enough to feed humanity. But Mars has a different scenario, as we have to cultivate everything as our own: the forests, the water, the oxygen, at a much higher cost as resources than we could bear on Earth. Even though you could still manage to maintain all the necessities of life, don't forget that this is a whole new planet, and its weather is wholly against you all day long. You have to fight constantly to overcome the violent and hospitable barren land, with nature firmly against you at every turn. Though there are some signs of ice, most scientists came to this point that it's a global desert. The oxygen on Mars is 0.14%, which is not breathable at all, obviously, but NASA had created a solution of building a habitat, a dome-shaped bubble with a constant supply of oxygen. Martian atmosphere is extremely thin, which is why a spacecraft finds it difficult to land on Mars. Not only that, but the atmosphere contains a toxic element called perchlorate. This molecule consists of 1 chlorine atom and oxygen atoms. The plus point of this perchlorate is that the oxygen atoms can be separated from the chlorine atoms, and remaining can be collected to create oxygen. But the downside of this item is that it's still extremely toxic for humans. It can cause several blood diseases, sleeping disorders, temperature regulation. Till date, there is no guaranteed way or process to eliminate this chemical from oxygen 100%. So you are not 100% in the habitat as well. However, in the future, even if there is a way to live without a perchlorate, this solution could be leveraged as an invaluable resource and only have access to limited people. Even though we could manage with all our necessities to live for 180-day tour on Mars, seriously, on a planet that has a toxic atmosphere, on a planet which is further away from the Earth, time away from the sun, scarce supply of oxygen, a limited supply of water, and the dust storms the size of North America. The question is it even worth it? The simple answer: It's that it's too far away and too hostile for human life. Even though with all the effort space giants are putting in to make life sustainable, sorry folks, it would still take some decades to make human life livable, even for a few days.